as fans of the game, there's some aspects that we tend to overlook or not emphasize too much, even though it is something that constantly happens in the sport. One of those aspects is the injury situation. It is not easy to be a professional athlete. The amount of work these guys put in during the season and during the off season is insane. The physical and mental strain they put on themselves to be able to get to that high of a level, be it the workouts, be it practice, or be it on the field. What these guys are able to accomplish and what they're able to do, just being able to live that type of life on a day-to-day basis, it's insanity. And we got to give these athletes credit. It is not easy. But man, it's unfortunate with some of the things they have to deal with. Injuries, they're a part of the game. They suck, they're terrible, and it's unfortunate. We truly feel bad for these athletes when they get injured because they put so much time into preparing themselves just for one injury to ruin it. You could spend your entire offseason working out, making sure you're in the best shape of your life, following that regimen on a day-to-day basis. You get to training camp, you're in practice, things aren't really heavy because it's early on, and just like that, boom, you're injured. On a play that's not even contact related. You just got here. You just injured. You stepped the wrong way, you twisted your ankle, it's severe. You jumped the wrong way, boom, torn ACL. It's crazy how injuries impact the game and how we really tend to overlook it at times. We really don't emphasize just how severe injuries are and just how random they can happen. An injury can happen on any time. It can be happening in the game, it can happen on the practice field, it can happen in the workouts, it can happen while just being at home. It's crazy how we tend to overlook that at times. We always sit back and talk about certain players who are heavily injury prone. But every single player in the National Football League, they're prone to injuries because injuries are a part of the game. They're bound to happen, be it something minor or something major. Every single player that has ever played any type of sport has suffered through some sort of injury. Whether they've played through that injury or it's something that takes them out for the season, every player that has ever played a sport has suffered some level of injury. And it's unfortunate, but it's always been a part of the game. And it's tough when you see it happen. Today, we had that happen to two of our star players in this league. Joe Burrow and, of course, Jalen Ramsey. Let's talk about Jalen Ramsey first because his injury was the more severe of the two. So, Ramsey, who recently ended up becoming a Miami Dolphin, he was practicing today, doing the normal things. You know, it's the first week of training camp. Everything's supposed to be light. They're not even making real contact. Not a lot of tackling. They're not even wearing pads yet. It's the first week. So everything's supposed to be minor, you know, just warming yourself up, getting yourself back into the rhythm of training camp. And, you know, everything is pretty much simple. It's the first week, so it's supposed to be light. He's on the practice field, and all of a sudden, he suffers a significant knee injury. Now, when I heard that he suffered a significant knee injury, I immediately thought, oh my God, this is a torn ACL because it was non-contact. He's probably out for the season. This is completely tragic. He was going to be a huge factor for the Dolphins defense. They needed somebody in that secondary that can cover these top-tier receivers. And Jalen Ramsey is one of the best corners in the game. So bringing him here was a huge asset for the Miami Dolphins. And now, during the first week of practice, he suffers a significant knee injury. Now, I will say this. It's unfortunate. It's tragic. But there is some positivity here, and that has to deal with the duration or the severity of the injury. It's unfortunate he suffered this injury. He's done for quite some time. He's out. But thankfully, it does not seem to be season-ending. They confirmed it a little bit earlier, like a couple hours ago. They confirmed it that Jalen Ramsey is dealing with a meniscus injury, so he's gonna require surgery. Now, this surgery is going to keep him out for the next 6 to 8 weeks. So, thankfully, the knee injury he suffered in training camp, in practice today, is not season ending. So that is a huge relief for the Miami Dolphins. However, it is something that will not only keep him out of the remainder of training camp, but will keep him out for the first quarter of the season. With an injury this severe, especially being a knee injury, it's going to take time to get him back to where he needs to be. So, you got to go through the process of surgery, then the recovery process, the rehab process, getting you back to 100%. Then you can get to go on the field. And then from there, you got to start getting back into that level of shape and rhythm to be able to do your job and do what you do on the field effectively. So, Jalen Ramsey, he's got a long journey ahead for the next several months. But thankfully for him, it is not season ending. He will be able to come back and play for the Miami Dolphins at some point this season. If I was to take a guess, look towards week 6, week 7, maybe a little bit later. Week 6 is probably a situation where it's like everything went perfect, surgery went perfect, rehab went perfect. Jalen Ramsey was able to get himself back into shape and get back out on the practice field, and he was able to just pick things up quickly, and they decided to throw him out there. I'm really thinking he's going to be gone for potentially the first half of the NFL season, just because when it comes to knee injuries, you don't want to rush that. So you want to take your time with that. Let him get the surgery. Let him recover in proper time. Let him go through the rehab and the recovery process properly. Let him get back to 100%. Then from there, let him get himself back into football shape. He comes on the practice field. He gets those reps, and then you can put him out there. So it's going to be a long process. But at the end of the day, you're still going to have Jalen Ramsey if you're a Dolphin. So, Dolphins fans, it's unfortunate that he suffered this injury. It's tragic, but Jalen Ramsey will play football this season for the Miami Dolphins at some point. Look towards the second half of the NFL season as opposed to the first half. But if everything goes well and he's just going through the recovery process and he's speeding through it and he's 100% and he's feeling fine and he's moving fine and he's looking fine, then yeah, you'll probably be out there by like week 5, week 6. But we'll see. Either way, his injury is not season-ending. Thankfully, he will play football this season. As for Joe Burrow, his injury isn't severe either. It's not as severe as Jalen Ramsey, but it is something that was a bit of a scare. Thankfully, it's nothing major. He's going to miss time in training camp, but honestly, with this injury, you don't expect him to miss any time for the season. So, Joe Burrow was on the practice field today, and there was a moment in the game, or a moment in practice, where he started rolling to his right. He had the ball in his hand, he was rolling to his right, and then as he was rolling to his right, all of a sudden, you saw he started limping badly. So, like, he started limping and jittering, and he just went down, and he was holding his leg. And everybody looked around and was in dead silence. When I saw he went down with a leg injury, a non-contact leg injury where we saw the video and he had to be carted off, part of me thought he was done for the season, man. I really thought he was done for the season. Now, there was another part of me that thought, you know what, this might just be a cramp. It is the summertime. It's the summertime. It's training camp. It's always hot during the summer. It was over 100 degrees today, so maybe it was just cramping up. I was really praying for a cramp, but that wasn't the case. They did reveal that it was an injury. It was not a cramp. So now my next thought was, well, how serious is this injury? Is it season-ending or is it minor? Thankfully, it's not a great injury, but it's not an injury that's going to take him. Well, there's no such thing as a great injury. It's not a really minor injury, but it is somewhat of a minor injury because he's not going to miss any time for the regular season. He'll be out for a while, but he's not going to miss any regular season time. So Joe Burrow suffered a calf sprain in practice today. He was carted off. Thankfully, he'll be okay. He talked with Jamar Chase, and he gave Jamar Chase the thumbs up and said, I'm going to be all right. So it was a calf sprain. He's going to miss some time. Shouldn't be too much time for him to miss because of the calf sprain, as long as it doesn't escalate into anything worse. They'll be cautious with that, and at the end of the day, he should be still relatively ready to go for week 1. It's just he's going to miss a good chunk of training camp. Depending on how severe or minor the calf sprain is, he may be back for some level of training camp, but I don't know. Either way, if the Bengals were looking to potentially play Joe Burrow in a preseason game, that's a dead issue now. You're not putting him out there for the preseason. You're just not going to risk him. So if they were looking to get him some reps in the preseason, I recommend not doing that after the man suffers an injury in practice. There's no need to throw him out there. The next time we need to see Joe Burrow on a football field actually playing a game should be week 1. But yeah, his is a minor one. He'll be out for some time, but ultimately he'll be fine and he'll be good to go for week 1. Anyway, I just wanted to talk about those two injuries because it's something that we don't really discuss much, and we don't really, go into the emphasis of when it comes to injuries. We always look at it as an unfortunate situation, and it's an aspect that's part of the game, but, we really do forget that sometimes injuries can happen at any point, and there's nothing that you can control. A guy that's never suffered an injury once in his career can end up suffering an injury in practice. The guy can take like 1,000 sacks throughout his career, but then all of a sudden he's on practice one day and he just steps the wrong way, and all of a sudden he suffers an injury. It happens, It really just happens. An injury can happen anywhere, anytime when it comes to these athletes. And we got to be able to understand that. We tend to be a bit too judgmental towards certain players that suffer injuries. These things happen, and there's nothing you can really do. It's not like you're praying, or it's not like they're purposely trying to have these accidents happen to them, but these are just things that happen. They're not praying for it. The fans aren't praying for it. No one's praying for these guys to get injured. These things just happen. It's unfortunate. And obviously, these guys are not going out there to purposely try to get themselves injured. Things just happen. Thankfully, these two injuries are not season-ending injuries, and both of these players will be able to play NFL football this season. So, thankfully, it's not terrible, but it is what it is. Players have also been dropping down through and through. I think the Ravens, we've lost 2 players so far that's suffered some level of injury. We haven't heard what type of injury it is. It's something. Well, we haven't even heard if it's been much of an injury. We've just seen a couple players throughout the first 2 days of training camp leave out early for practice because something happened. But so far, everything's been relatively good for the Ravens. We still got plenty of training camp left to go, and we still got to see how these preseason games are going to go. So, knock on wood, hopefully everyone stays healthy. But, injuries happen. We just hope for the best. Anyway, guys, I appreciate you watching. Thanks so much. And with that being said, I'm out of here. Peace.